Torah tells us that God had said to his heavenly retinue, the angels, let us make man in our image and our form. The commentators explain that although God has no image, if God is infinite, he's not contained within anything. There is no image. So what does it mean in his image? God chooses to do as he chooses. Of course, God's action and decision is always not based on choice, but rather based on what is right. Because there's no unclear moment to God. There's a question which is asked, the 10th plague, which came exactly at midnight, Moshe, being God's spokesman, says to Pharaoh and his court, his wise men, his advisors, his astrologers, about midnight, God will strike and all the firstborn males will die in Egypt. About midnight. The Talmud asks, why did Moshe use the term about midnight? It's exactly at midnight. God forbid, maybe you would say, that God doesn't know exactly the moment when midnight is. It could be off as much as 1/1,000,000th of a nanosecond. This is something which is impossible to say. If God is the essence and the source of all existence, including time, God knows exactly what midnight is. So if Moshe is speaking in the name of God as God's agent, why did he say about midnight and not exactly midnight? So the Talmud says, because the stargazers, the wise men of Egypt, if Moshe would say exactly midnight, and based on the calculation of the astrologers and the wise men of Egypt, they say, Moshe, it didn't happen exactly as you said, because based on our evaluation calculation, it was not exactly at midnight. It was a moment too early, a moment too late. Therefore, what you say is false. So rather than allow himself to enter into an area where he could be accused of not being truthful or not being accurate, he spoke in an ambiguous context by saying about rather than saying exactly at midnight. So the concept of choice, God is not subject to choice. Choice is if something is not exactly clear and one is not fully aware which is the better situation, we have to make an evaluation, an analysis to understand what should be applied, which has no relevance to God. But nevertheless, God does as he chooses, a borrowed term, to do. Man being created in his image must be a being of intellect and have the ability to choose as he wishes, as no one dictates to God how he should behave. Man has a choice to chart out his own life within a certain context, to do right or do wrong. Because if the ultimate reward is to be a beneficiary of the ultimate good, is to have a relationship with God and to cleave to God, we must create and establish a compatibility, a commonality for the human being to be able to attach himself and cleave to God, who's the source of goodness in the absolute sense.